So here we are, a new week of practice, the 11th of the month of Elul, watching the moon grow each night for those of you who are tuned in. Really blessed to have been in the country the past few weeks and see the night sky so clearly and watch the moon wax and grow towards the middle of the month of Elul, and we're immersed in the spiritual practice. And in the Shofar Project, for those of you who have not been involved with the Shofar Project, one of the themes of this week, which is drawn from his chapter on the practice of Slichot, which is the series of prayers recited in the days leading up to Rosh Hashanah and the Saturday night service, the Saturday night before Rosh Hashanah. One of the elements of the practice of the this is real aspect is coming to terms with the reality that we are part of something infinitely larger than ourselves, which is one of the major themes of Rosh Hashanah. The theme of Malchut, of God's, quote, sovereignty, is really representational of a sense of being part of something infinitely larger than ourselves and humbling us in that way. And Kohenet Kashira, in her teaching this week, writes that Rabbi Alan Liu of blessed memory reflects on the power of being part of a sea of humanity when we engage in services together on the high holidays. Maybe this has been resonant for you. Maybe you know what it feels like to be part of something greater than yourself. At the more than physical level, the instruction invites us to bring greater awareness to the ways in which we are all interconnected and to the importance of our choices and actions, each of which have a ripple effect throughout that larger whole that we are part of. So our theme today is what I would call the theme of the practice of yirah, of awe. We're moving towards what are called the Yamim Noraim, days of awe. This week's Torah portion, Parsha Kitavo, has beautiful sections and also has very challenging sections. And one of the challenging sections of the Torah portion is what's known as the Tochacha, the reproach, where Moses tells the people that if they do not follow the instructions that they've been given, there are going to be terrible, terrible consequences, really unspeakable consequences. And in a sense, he's kind of using a sense of fear of those consequences as a motivation to adhere to the path that he's laid out, or that the Torah lays out for the Jewish people. So that's one kind of yirah, one kind of awe, which is usually translated as fear. I'm going to share a couple of teachings, and I want to just invite us to begin by grounding ourselves in our practice today, and just taking a few moments before we even move into some guided practice to find a position that's comfortable for each of us. And you might want to adjust yourself in the seat. And you might be hearing the sound of my voice, but I want to invite you to try to let go of everything else that's going on in your environment right now and just be present. My mind might be swirling with things on your to-do list for today or things that are happening in your life. But the invitation for our practice, which is a practice of cultivating Shabbat mind, is just being hineni, just being present. We do that by noticing what's happening in our body right now, or the sounds in our environment, what's happening right now. Or the breathing that's happening right now. Or the temperature of the air against our skin right now. What is happening for you right now? settle ourselves by receiving at least 3 deep breaths into the belly, resetting the nervous system, anxiety that takes us out of the present. What does it feel like just to be still for a few moments? And answering any judgments about what's happening with a lot of compassion, a lot of self-love, a lot of tenderness. Place the hand over your heart. You feel as physically experience that sense of tenderness towards yourself. Can be helpful too. We're in no rush, going anywhere. I also invite you to continue to sit as you're sitting with your intention to be just present for what's true for you right now. Your breathing, sounds in your room, sensations of sitting, standing. I'm going to share some words of Torah, but I'm not going to share my screen. And just going to offer these quotes, and if you'd like a copy of these words, they'll be available later. Don't need them right now. There is a beautiful teaching about yirah, about awe, about that sense of something larger, grander than ourselves, being part of that, from one of the great Hasidic masters, Rabbi Moshe Chaim Ephraim, in his Degel Machane Ephraim commentary, where he writes, "Eat yirah, ve'eat yirah." There is fear, and there is fear. There is awe, and there is awe. There's 2 different kinds. One kind of yirah is yirah chitzonit, external fear. That's when we fear the whip, when we're afraid of consequences, afraid of repercussions in this world. But there's another kind of fear called yirat haromamut, awe of divine grandeur. And when we merit that kind of yirah, of divine grandeur, then all external fear dissipates. The yirah achitzonit dissipates in the face of yirat haromamut. And while many of us may have the sense during the coming Yamim Noraim that there are days of fear, that is not the case. They're days of awe, of connecting with our capacity for awe. And there's no greater teacher of that concept than Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel taught that, and I quote, that the meaning of awe is to realize that life takes place under wide horizons, horizons that range beyond the span of an individual life, or even the life of a nation, a generation, or an era. Awe enables us to perceive in the world intimations of the divine, to sense in small things the beginning of infinite significance, to sense the ultimate in the common and the simple. to feel in the rush of the passing the stillness of the eternal. Simple as that. Simple as that. So the invitation for our practice as we sit together, just trying to be present together, mindful and aware of presence of hundreds of other people doing the exact same thing right now with us, all making time in their day just to be still, to connect with what is infinite, to realize that in our short time on earth, we are part of something that goes so far beyond us, that humbles us, amazes us, and infuses our small lives with ultimate significance. Feel that the infinite is present in each breath, in each sensation, in each sound. Rabbi Heschel wrote of Shabbat that eternity utters a day. And it's a beautiful way of understanding the idea that each experience we have, each moment we have in this timeline that we call our lives is an expression of the eternal. We are part of something infinite. We are never separate from it. So I would invite us to sit with that awareness for the next 10 minutes or so. As if we were all sitting together at the Grand Canyon for some vista that takes our breath away. We're looking at the ocean. We're looking back at the earth from space. We're walking in a cemetery. Timeless. Let's sit together with Yirah, with Yirat Romamut. And I'll call us back at the end. Poet James Cruz writes, so I imagine the entire earth as one beating heart held in the space of this universe. I imagine the entire earth as one beating heart held in the space of this universe. Inside a larger body we can't fathom, filling with enough love to lead each of us out of the cave of our personal pain and into the light. Enough love to lead all humans as one out of collective fear, rage, and hate into a place of peace that is found only within our own hearts, beating in sync with the pulse of this planet we were born to inhabit. Despite the daily storms which overtake us and make us forget, we are the lifeblood pumped into these veins. Every particle of love we generate running into rivers, lakes, and creeks, evaporating into the air we breathe. Give back and breathe again. Sitting with that awareness of being part of the one beating heart in the space of this universe, inside a larger body we can't fathom, filling us with love. come to the close of our sit. Prepare to hear the sound of the shofar, the month of Elul. Inviting you to hear that sound, to hear the vibration as a kind of homing call, an invitation, an expression of that beating heart of the universe that is in sync with our own beating hearts. Hear the vibration of the shofar resonating with the vibration within our own body, connecting all of us into something so much larger than we can imagine. And those vibrations subside. And inviting you, if your eyes have been closed, to let them open. If your attention has just been inward, come back to the group. Offer some appreciation to yourself for showing up today, for yourself. Offer some appreciation to this group for being here, holding this space, precious space for connecting with a sense of yirah, of awe. And we seal the practice as we do each day by offering those of you who are in mourning, grieving, observing a yard site perhaps, to recite the mourner's Kaddish. If you're not reciting Kaddish, we offer you the opportunity to be a supportive presence, compassionate presence for those who are. So please stay present. Thanks to Jet for sharing the words of the Kaddish on the screen. If you're reciting Kaddish, I invite you to put the name or names of those you're honoring in the chat box either now or after we recite Kaddish, and to rise in body or in spirit, and you can unmute at this time.
Yikadal,
Yikadal, Yikadash, Shemei Rabbi, Amak, Ega Michokute, Hayechon, Yomecho, Yedchol B'Yisrael, Ha'adala,
Bisman Karekim
Ishmei Rabban Barach, Lam Amen Amen.
Bismay Rabam Varach Arvit Raman Vietnasek Darvit Alevit Alal Shemed Kucha Randi Alma Amen. Shmaya B'chaim Aleinu Ra'al V'yamru Amen. Shalom Ya'aseh Shalom Aleinu V'yokol Yisrael
Kol Yoshe
Yamru Amen.
Amen.
Should I just put her name out? What is it? Terri?
Terri.
Terri?
Friends, thanks for joining us today. Let's let you know that our teachings this week are going to be led entirely by the IGS faculty. Tomorrow and Thursday, Rebecca Schisler will be leading us. On Wednesday, Kashir Halad-Fife will be leading us. And on Friday, Sam Feinsmith will be leading us to sit into Shabbat together. So, and each day will be grounded on some aspect of our teaching for the Shofar project in preparation for the upcoming days of awe. Thanks to Jet Bachman for holding our space today, as always, beautifully and gracefully. And thanks to the cousins of Stephanie Selinger Rothschild for sponsoring today's practice in loving memory of their cousin, Zichrono Libracha. May her memory be a blessing always in your lives and in this world. So friends, if you're leaving us now, hope you stay safe and well. We hope to see you soon. If you'd like to stay on to continue to use this time and space to sit, you're welcome to do that. I'm happy to stay on and respond to questions in the chat if you have or want to share responses or reflections on your experience. I'm also happy to screen share some of the teachings that I in the beautiful poem by James Cruz that I shared. Thanks so much, Jet, for putting the link for the source sheet in the chat. And I'll keep an eye on. Let me just see if there are questions that people would like to share. If you have a question, if you could write question in all caps, I'll keep an eye on that. Okay, great question, Lori. Would you please help me reconcile the huge Yirah law with step 3 higher power God who perhaps looks after me for us with guidance and care? Great question. So I don't know that there's, I mean, maybe you want to write a little bit more, Lori, about what you might experience as a disconnect between those two. For me, they're very similar. This idea of, in fact, the fact that in the 12 steps of recovery, God is described as this higher power, fits very neatly for me with this idea of, and I'll share the text here so we can take a look at that together. With this Degel Machle Ephraim teaching on Yirah, and this concept, which I'm going to highlight here, of Yirat Tarumamut. See, here it is, the Hebrew, abbreviated there, which literally means kind of awe of the higher, of the highness, the great, that which is greater. So I guess I'm picking up that maybe the distinction is that grandeur, that greatness, that infinite quality, which Heschel describes here a little bit below. I read this passage from Heschel's book, God in Search of Man, that associates the divine with the infinite. So I guess I'm picking up that maybe maybe the question is about the pathos or the concern of that infinite with our well-being in some sense. And certainly for Heschel, that the universe, let's say the universe, the infinite, the beyond, the transcendent, is in fact deeply concerned with and loving towards us. It's not an indifferent, disconnected transcendence. It's actually a transcendence that is concerned with, if we could use that kind of anthropomorphic language, concerned with us, or just to make it really simple, that loves us, which leads to the poem from James Cruz, which really describes the earth as a beating heart held in the space of the universe. And that universe is inside a larger body we can't even fathom. There's no word for it. It's not universe, it's larger than the universe. But whatever that is, that infinite, fills us with enough love to lead us out of the cave of our personal pain into the light. So I think that's a beautiful description of a kind of 12-step understanding of the divine as this higher power that wants the best for us, that wants healing for us, that is with us in our pain and our loss, etc., and that can lead us to a place of peace. So that's the best I got in terms of connecting that. So it's not an indifferent. Okay. Michael is asking, is there a way in which my personal practice has evolved, whether in my teaching or my own experience of stillness? Oh, yes. So I'll say that probably for most of my adult life, I think my not what I wanted, but my default religious sensibility really was connected with that other sense of the kind of fearful sense of displeasing and acting contrary to that sense of the divine. And I will happily acknowledge IJS, my experience with IJS 24 years ago, as really my first experience of Judaism being presented as a tradition that emphasizes love as the essential ingredient for personal transformation, rather than harsh judgment. That was really, for me, a 180. And that recognizes that also in the sense that of stopping and being still, that we can become attuned to that reality, that grandeur, that can restore that sense of connection. So I'll happily give a lot of credit to IJS and to my teachers at that time, who were Sylvia Borstein and Rabbi Art Green and Rabbi Sheila Peltz-Weinberg and Rabbi Michael Strassfeld, Rabbi Jonathan Ormerman, and above all, really, Rabbi Nancy Flam, who was the founding executive director for IJS, which for myself and for many clergy I know, for whom the IJS was originally intended as a program specifically for clergy, was deeply personally transformative. Michael, thank you for the question. It gives me a chance to share that. Yeah, Heschel, you cannot go wrong. Either rereading Heschel or taking a volume of Heschel with you if you go to my holiday services, in addition to Rabbi Lou's book. Yeah, thanks, Chris. So once again, we have a wonderful lineup for teachers this week. Tomorrow, Rebecca Schisler will be here. Rebecca's leading twice this week, on Tuesday and Thursday. Kohana Kashir Halef Fife will lead on Wednesday, and Rabbi Sam Feinsmith on Friday. So very, very delighted that we have such a beautiful, of course, we always have a wonderful lineup of teachers, but especially this week, the whole IJS faculty, other than Miriam Margolius and Rabbi Miriam Klotz as well. Okay, so maybe we'll just end with one more reading of this beautiful poem by James Cruz. He's a wonderful contemporary poet, if you don't know him, who has published a series of beautiful anthologies of spiritual poetry on themes of kindness and love and forgiveness. Which one book of Heschel do you recommend first? I would say his book on the Sabbath, which is just beautiful poetry. And really, since what we often like to speak of this practice as a Shabbat practice, is a great, I think, in a sense, it's kind of a great Jewish mindfulness primer in trying to understand that what Shabbat is about, that it's not about just not doing things and letting go, but it's actually an active process, an active spiritual practice of cultivating this awareness. During the meditation, as I suggested extemporaneously, a couple of settings that might inspire that sense of grandeur and awe, like the Grand Canyon or some great vista or the ocean, or they were all pleasant until, and then I mentioned the cemetery, and I don't know if anybody had a reaction to that when I mentioned the cemetery. For me, the cemeteries have always evoked that sense because they're such powerful reminders. They really are pretty much, that's in a nutshell what Alan Lou's book, This is Real and You Are Completely Unprepared, is about just being aware of our finitude and our mortality on the one hand, but on the other hand, the sense of, at least for me, I'll say, when I see headstones, even if whether somebody had lived to 100 or it's the gravestone of a child, who lived only a couple of years, just an awareness of how short and finite our lifespans are, and yet a sense of presence of that person's spirit that transcends their lifespan. For me, that's always been a very powerful thing. And I think very much in keeping with the theme of the holidays too. And visits to cemeteries are a tradition, a custom at this time of year to go, if it's possible, to visit relatives in cemeteries at this time of year. I think in part to instill in us that awareness that we are, while we're here for a short time, there's an aspect of ourselves that is eternal, that is part of eternity. And that is the same kind of sense of wonder and amazement and reassurance and love that enables us to transform or be transformed by giving ourselves over to that, what step 3 of the 12 steps is, our higher power, turning our lives and our will over to that higher power and allowing ourselves to be transformed by through that awareness, which is very different than saying, oh, I'll do better this year, don't punish me, or don't write me in the wrong book this year. There's lots of sources in Jewish tradition that says that is, quote, a lower form of yirah, and what we're striving for is a more exalted sense, that yirat romamut that the Degel Macharei Ephraim speaks of. Okay, so let's close with this James Cruz prayer, and as always, thanks to all of you for hanging in there together. It's this called Only Love. It's from this anthology, The Path to Kindness. So I imagine the entire earth as one beating heart held in the space of this universe, inside a larger body we can't fathom, filling with enough love to lead each of us out of the cave of our personal pain and into the light. Enough love to lead all humans as one out of collective fear, rage, and hate into a place of peace that is found only within our own hearts, beating in sync with the pulse of this planet we were born to inhabit. Despite the daily storms which overtake us and make us forget, we are the lifeblood pumped into these veins. Every particle of love we generate running into rivers, lakes, and creeks, evaporating into the air we breathe, give back and breathe again. So with that beautiful, beautiful, beautiful teaching from James Cruz, send love to each of you and blessings for a good rest of your day, and hope to see you tomorrow for practicing at the Bekishis, everyone. Good to be with you. Thanks so much, Jed, for holding our space. And again, thanks to Stephanie Selinger, Rothschild's cousins, for sponsoring today's practice. Many blessings.